All right. Hey, good evening and welcome, or good day, depending on what time you're paying attention to this. Welcome to the Big Story Podcast. I'm Alex Morrissey.
I'm Giddy Doofna.
Willabelly's off tonight, and tonight we have a very special guest, Hope Larson.
Yay!
Hey, Hope.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm not used to applause like that.
This is great, right?
Gary's big on the applause. I tried to get a third Ashvillian on tonight, Nick Filardi, but he's doing family duties with the in-laws. So we're trying to overwhelm we could talk local stuff and drive Gary crazy all night.
I'm just not going to listen.
I don't think I know Nick. Which is surprising because it's not a big town.
It's not a big town and it's not a big industry. So yeah, Nick's an awesome colorist, and I guess he's doing a bunch of sort of his own sort of like indie kind of ashcan kind of comics right now. He's kind of like after years of being a colorist, so like, I really want to do my own comic books. I'm like, go for it, man. So he's out there doing it. So, and then he's also playing lots of games, I guess, on the internet, with the chair or whatever those people do. I don't know. I'm not a
right with the headset. Sure,
maybe. I don't know. I love him too much to watch. That's my honest answer. So welcome, and it's been I think 2.5 years since I've actually seen you. Not that we had much to do. It was Free Comic Book Day, and we were just swamped by people the whole day. So, and that was the first time I sat and drew for people in 15, 16 years. So.
Oh wow!
Longer, so it was quite a culture shock, and I didn't even.
It's weird to do it in person. It's weird to be, like cranking out the sketches for people who are actually there, as opposed to just being alone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So, but I don't know. I guess people did Free Comic Book Day this year. I don't know if I saw a bunch of signs for it, and we were traveling. I was officiating a wedding actually on Free Comic Book Day, so I never got a chance to even find a comic book store. So
I didn't even think about it. Not this year.
No,
just locks down at home.
It's sort of just like, it's this weird kind of thing where there's this like urge to go do stuff, but then you go, maybe not. Maybe everything is pretty cool right here. I've got a sewing machine. I can sew. So.
Oh, okay. Gone to that.
Well, I have a toddler, so that's really the main thing that keeps me busy.
That's like
24/7.
Yeah, that's like real work.
That's lots of work.
But it must be the absolute. It must be a wellspring of ideas for you. I mean, you must be like just on a daily basis observing this, sort of formative behavior and this sort of try-fail cycles, all the time. And you can, how do you not apply that to sort of the creative process and your in story development?
I definitely think about when I'm writing dialogue and when I'm trying to capture characters who are like kind of sassy, bratty, opinionated.
Yeah.
I just think, what would my toddler do? And it helps a lot, for real.
WWMT is a real thing. That's your new one. What would my toddler do? Hashtag WWMT. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I think, I think as a writer, I mean, even as an artist, I mean, I think there's lifetime sort of study of behavior around you at all times. Like you're just kind of soaking in, lots of bad behavior, because it's way more fun to write the bad behavior and, interject that into your stories. But, it's just kind of this weird thing. But I don't have children. So the idea of this sort of being of just madness and fun, like can be just, it seems like a cheat. I think you found a cheat code of writing.
I mean, maybe. I think actually the main thing that I've found since having a kid, she's my one kid, is it makes my job seem easy. Yeah. Because you have basically complete control over the work that you're creating to
Right.
an extent that the extent that you can control anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the stakes feel extremely low in comparison to raising a human being and to dealing with a living person, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
so
like,
yeah,
it's work
feels like a little, like a safe place.
I'm so surprised that no one has yet created some sort of like, sort of therapy account for like you have your like here's your college education account that you put aside for your child, or whatever the things your retirement fund, like here's the therapy fund for the kids, because it's bound to happen from whatever I'm going to do to them, yeah, I don't know, because that's all I ever talked to my therapist about. So yeah, so let's see. I mean, you're sort of like one of the multi-talented folks out there. You do being a cartoonist and a writer. So that's an interesting hybrid, and a fascinating hybrid in that respect, because I think we the bulk of the business is filled with people who write words and people who draw pictures. So you end up having very sort of siloed experience as a creator in that regard. And it's an interesting thing when you get people who have hybrid, sort of talents, and are able to, do both at a high level and carry their vision, all the way through. So what were words the earliest thing for you, or were pictures the earliest thing for you?
Good question.
I think pictures were the earliest thing. Like, I was always an art kid from the time I was little. Okay. And I was a big reader and a little bit of a writer, but then as I got older, I don't think I had as I got into my teen years, I didn't have a lot of confidence in my writing.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until after college that I started to focus more on the writing than on the visuals, on the art and the visual storytelling. And now I really consider myself to be more of a writer than an artist, but they're really intertwined.
Yeah.
They're not really, I can't really separate them completely. Even when I'm writing, I've been told that my work is very visual.
Yeah.
And I like to think that one of my strengths as an artist is being able to communicate my visual intent to an artist that I'm working with. I've been told that a couple of times, but also just seeing the work that comes out of my collaborators from my scripts. I so often have these moments where I'm like, that is just what was in my head, and I don't know how you got it out. It's kind of like,
that's awesome.
When I'm drawing my own stuff, the art never really is what's in my head. It's not good enough, you know what I mean, right?
Oh, totally. It's like, it's this weird thing. I remember the first person I ever remember talking about that very fact was with Adam Hughes. This is like 1992-ish. And it was just this weird thing. Like, it was this huge struggle. Like, he had it as well. And I think it was in that period, like around then, is when he sort of kind of, I guess, overcame that issue in his ability, that sort of became this sort of superpower that he has. But but it was this really struggling thing where you have this picture in your head, and like you look at this piece of paper and you go, why doesn't it seem to line up with that little, like, sort of sketch that's sort of mercurial in my mind that I can't lock down to trace it. So it's frustrating.
Yeah. But the cool thing about working with other artists is that when I get to work with somebody like Rebecca Mock, who I've collaborated with on 3 books now, she is just so far beyond me as an artist. And she has this way of just taking my scripts and making them exactly what I wish they were, and that's really magical and really cool.
So, you said, you were, you drew a lot. You were an arty kid, and you were an avid reader, but like, did you? I mean, were I mean, did you think like, oh, I mean, were you thinking like, this is what I want to do? Like, I want to write books, or I want to create comic books, or I want to draw a comic book? Like, was there a sort of intention in your youth, as a kid, and where did that sort of focus?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought I was going to be like a writer and an artist when I was a kid. Okay. I mean, among other things, like I also wanted to be a veterinarian and like a geologist and all this stuff, and I'm obviously not any of those.
You could be.
Not likely. But yeah, I think it's just always, I don't know if I was just encouraged by the right people. My parents were always really supportive, and I guess other people in my life were too, because for me, when I think about people getting into the arts and staying in the arts, I think that's really like the make or break thing. Did somebody see something in you and support you and let you stay on this path and not fall off it because you lost confidence in yourself? It's really like the stick to itiveness that I think is the most critical to actually being a working artist. That and like coming from a privileged background, like that certainly didn't hurt for me.
It doesn't, it doesn't hurt. And I think you're really right about that. I think there's a level sort of like, I don't know, like I always think that there has to be a level of compartmentalization in a creative sort of spirit where you have, okay, well, listen, I'm just going to lock everything in here and do the thing that I need to do. And if you're driven to do that thing, you're going to get to the end of that project. And I think, the most, I mean, listen, the most important thing is finishing the thing, like
that's for sure.
And I think, I think we often, when we're starting off on the pathway of like, oh, I'm going to make whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. We are too often sort of like diverted by the insecurity of greatness. Like, oh, it's got to be great, because everyone wants to be great. No one wants to be mediocre. But like the trick is to not consider the quality level of it. You just need to do it and get it done. And then, when you look back at it, you can either have, if you have the luxury of revisions, that's great, or you just look at it and go, okay, well, I really messed that up here, here, and here, but just remember, don't do that the next time.
Right.
It's super tough. I think I tweeted this morning about, like, just like water, coming into a foundation, like insecurity always finds a way through, or it finds its way into every project. Like there's this thing that just kind of creeps in, and I fight it all the time. Go, okay, well, whatever, man. Like I can feel that, like, ugh, this isn't worth it. This isn't good. It's going to suck. Everyone's going to hate it, or whatever the internal monologue is. And then I doing this 30 plus years, I kind of have that sort of, able to kind of slam that door shut, like, like some sort of airlock, and go, okay, just that didn't ever happen, and you just keep moving on. But
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think I'm a big reviser.
Yeah.
For me, the first draft is like pulling teeth. It's just, it's horrible, and it can be bad. And it's just so hard to, once you get anything on the page, then you can fix it.
Yeah.
And that's really the main thing for me. It's like, I like to do a bunch of drafts of any project.
Sure.
And recently I've started taking on some projects where I'm for TV, where I'm revising other people's stuff.
Oh, cool.
And I have found that I love doing that, because the part that I like is the revising. I don't really like the writing, the initial, like just getting it down. No. But once there's anything on the page, and it doesn't have to be good, and really it's better if it's bad.
Sure.
Then I can go in and do the fun part, which is fixing it. And you just kind of like get to go in and be a mechanic. Yeah. And it's like all of the, it's the really gratifying part of making stuff for me, is making it work versus just making it out of whole cloth. I mean, I love that too. Like that's obviously the thing that I love the most, but I get as much satisfaction out of fixing other people's stuff as I do out of making my own.
Well, I think that's, that's really, that's super interesting. In the few times that I've had that, that privilege, so to speak, to work with somebody on their thing, whether it's a script or whatever the thing may be, it really is nice because I think there's an afforded objectivity that you don't have with the work that you create. So you're able to kind of look with a much bigger, wider lens at somebody else's, creation, and sort of apply whatever sort of craft you have, and instinct as well, into the two things. And I listened to an interview. I actually re-listened to an interview with a literary agent, Andrea Morrison from Writer's House, and she has an MFA in creative writing. She like went the whole route, but during her MFA, she ended up interning at Writer's House and really enjoyed the editing, or it's just the agent process, because there's this level of editing that happens in the creative development aspect. And she graduates, and she realized, like, I'm not really a writer. I'm really much more so in the vein of the fixer and the person putting it together. So it's really interesting how our minds will sort of like sink into these interesting, these new roles. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like, if I'd gone down a different road, would I be happy as an editor? Would I be a good editor?
Right.
I mean, I love the editorial relationship that I have with my editors. There's just nothing more fun for me than getting this pile of notes and getting to go in and fix it and make it better. But yeah, it's cool. And I feel like I might have a little bit too much ego for that, to have that be my main deal, Yeah. It's really that one of the things that I like so much about fixing these other projects for other people is that it's not ever really mine. So I can just go in and like do the job, and then I'm not wrapped up in it. It's not keeping me awake at night.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could do that exclusively.
Well, that's a fair thing, and it's an honest thing to be like, hey, like, because we are beings of ego, and to ignore that, that's sort of just a prescription for misery, because we've all experienced it or have experienced it in others. Yeah, but that's it's prescient of you to notice that in yourself and to be fair and honest. So if you were thinking like, hey, you want to like, write and draw, like, like when, like, I guess, I mean, you got into the business, I guess, in the early 2000s, yeah. So, like, so what were your models, I guess, so to speak? I mean, if you're like a teenager, college ager, and thinking like, hey, this is something I really want to do, like, what were you looking at the time to say, like, I want to do that? Because like, when we're old, so when Gary and I were in college, we got out in like 1991, so like, the comic industry was just insane and huge. It was just big at the time. But the sort of the model for the auteur wasn't that common in that sense. There were only a handful of people who were doing their own thing. And if your name wasn't Frank Miller, then the number got really small.
So a lot smaller.
Yeah. So
So for me, the people that I thought were really amazing were Dan Clowes,
Sure.
Chris Ware, Linda Berry, folks like that. The really indie folks who were writing and drawing their own stuff. And I also read a lot of manga as well, which is also cool. an auteur system pretty much. So, but when I started, there was no kids graphic novel industry the way that there is now in publishing. Now it's just like a huge deal, but that didn't exist when I was coming up.
Well, I think the manga thing is great. So where did you grow up? Like, where was how was your access to these sort of pieces out there?
I grew up in Asheville, so my access was not
okay.
great. When I do my school visits, I always talk about how in high school, my friends and I would take turns ordering like the next volume of Ranma 1/2, and then we'd pass it around and everybody would get to read it because we'd have to order it from
Right.
like, little baby Amazon that we had back then, and they were expensive. It was like, $15, $20 for a single book.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't get them at the library. You couldn't really buy them anywhere locally.
Yeah.
There was Pastimes,
Yeah,
the
they're
comic
still
book
there.
store.
Yeah, they're still there.
Are they still there?
He's
Wait,
still there.
what?
Yeah, but up
No.
in North Asheville, like just south of Woodfin. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
They moved around a couple of times.
Okay, yeah, no, I went there
and
yeah.
then there was like Barnes and Noble
Right.
for comics. I
Yeah.
think they were the only other ones who really had a little selection, and sometimes you would go and find something cool.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I mean, like, there was nothing of the sort, when I was in, I mean, I didn't see a comic book store until I was probably early high school. But I lived in New York City for about 25 years. So, we had the Japanese bookstores there. So like Books Kinokuniya was like 4 blocks from my apartment. So like it would go.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's awesome.
And they had this whole second floor, like this mezzanine floor, just loaded with manga. And I was really into like Masamune Shiro's work. So Appleseed and Ghost in the Shell. So they would get all these crazy Japanese editions, like full size page editions. And so, just go there and spend money you didn't have, getting your hands on all these great things. So, but yeah, it is interesting because that whole model of the sort of the singular vision story is it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's just amazing now that there is this growth market out there of, single stories, one book, beginning, middle, and end, bound and for sale. You said the youth market that's now, done by actual, book house publishers. It's a beautiful thing. And you've sort of been in that whole evolution of that, that business with your work.
Yeah.
Which is
I'm sort of the I'm still in it. Like, I came up with Raina Telgemeier and Vera and all those folks. And I do work that is less commercial, but they haven't kicked me out yet. I'm still hanging in there, and it's nice that I've basically gotten to make the work that I wanted to make the whole way through, for better or for worse. And they're still letting me do it.
That's it. I mean, listen, it's a phenomenal thing to have that, but I mean, listen, I mean, we're our first and foremost detractors, in our own creative pursuits in life. I mean, I think if you're doing it right, you're the first and foremost detractor of your work. But as you said, you've been doing it this whole time. Like, you're doing something right. That's a clear thing. And I mean, and the books are fantastic. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So how did you let's go back to like your first, well, let's go back to before your first published project. Was your first published project your first project, or did you have a sort of a failed sort of landings before that?
I mean, I did like a little bit of stuff online, and I did some mini comic type stuff in art school. But my first published book was Salamander Dream with Ad House Books.
Yep.
Little teeny tiny. I think he just actually shut down Ad House, which is sad. Chris Pitzer. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw that scroll by on Instagram, and I was like, oh. So that was the first graphic novel that I made. I just kind of did it start to finish.
Yeah.
And then it got published, and which is pretty crazy in retrospect. Well, I didn't really know what I was doing at all.
Right. So I mean,
I just did it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like, so few of us know what to do when we're doing the thing to start off with. So, how many pages did the book turn out to be?
It's short. I think it's like around 100 pages, 120 pages, something
Short.
like that. So it's like a little baby book.
Greater than my entire output during college, sure.
Right.
No, like
Just 100 pages.
yeah, just a measly 100 pages. But no, I mean the
Short.
thing is that you so you put this. How did you go about getting? I mean, like, what was your process to get the book created? I mean, it's a very different world, so we're not giving any sort of no one's sitting out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did this. Oh, all right, no, I'm gonna write a letter to somebody. No, so I mean, how did you go about it? Did you create the whole work? Did you create a proposal? Did you create pages? Like, how was your approach?
I'm not even sure at this point. I think I must have gotten some interest from Chris in publishing my work. If I did like a book, a publishable book,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe I wrote a script or an outline, something like that. And then I think I just kind of did it. I was living in Canada at the time, and I couldn't really have a job yet. So I was waiting for my my permanent resident card to be approved.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't work there because I'm American. And I had all this free time, and I kind of just did it. I'm a real button chair type person. So, I mean, that worked out for me. And I've kind of managed to just keep that going, just like jump from rock to rock,
Mm-hmm.
book to book, project to project without too much downtime for the most part in between. You need some.
Your output is really good. Like I was talking to Gary. I mean, it's just like, I mean, you're nearly a book a year kind of, I mean, if you're probably averaging a book, every year and a quarter, every year and a third. I mean, that's not a small feat.
It's been a lot. I mean, there was a period in there, and it's like, I don't draw them all. So that's
right. But still
what makes it possible.
Yeah.
But there was a period when I was in LA, and I was just kind of taking every job that came my way.
Right.
So I was working on Batman. I was working on Goldie Vance. I was working on All Summer Long. And maybe I'd also started the ball rolling on Salt Magic, which is coming out in October of this year.
Yeah.
And that's like 4 things simultaneously. And I was also getting into animation, pitching. I was pitching on a project, a thing in development that I ended up working on for a few years. So that was just like a time when I was doing a ton of work, and it was too much work, and I don't recommend it. But it did give me, I think, more of an ability to just crank stuff out when I really need to. And like working on Batgirl was so fun and so grueling. And I really feel like that taught me a lot about breaking story and just kind of like going with your gut and rolling with it and turning stuff around really, really fast.
Yeah.
Which is not how you want to work all the time, but it was kind of like training for a marathon or something,
Sure. Well, I mean, I've heard friends of mine, author friends of mine who have children, they've talked about how when they get the time to write, like there's this insane focus that happens when they sit down and like, okay, I have a half hour, I have 14 minutes that I can, so you work and you're just dialed in. Like, one of my writer friends, we get together and she's like, hey, you want to get together for sprints? And like, I sit and I write for 4 hours straight. Like I 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I sit and I write. Like I'm just, as you said, ass in seat. And she's like, oh, let's get together and we'll do sprints. I'm like, sprints? I'm like, no, it's a matter of just like grinding, and but that's just the way she, like, her writing methodology has developed that way because she has 2 kids and her time wasn't her own anymore. So even though we'll be
I'm not a sprinter.
No,
I'm very impressed by that. Like I do sit down and I focus fairly hard, but I really feel like I need a lot of air in my process to like write a few lines, write a couple pages, sit there and think about it and like chew on whatever, and then come back to it. And
Well,
it sounds like you're the same way.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's also like getting, like today, today I was writing, and I got up and I don't know, I walked and went to go do something in a different room, and like I'm like, oh shoot, I need to add just one line of dialogue, like way earlier in the chapter. It just finally dawned on me, if like I'm like, oh, if I add that one little line of dialogue, that sort of sets something up later, and that works perfectly. So you just go back in and you go clickety click and you add it, and you're like, cool, done. But it is that kind of thing. Like, I mean, it is a matter. I mean, but I make tons of mistakes, so I need to like, sit there and grind it out to be able to go back and fix it. And
yeah, I do a lot of that where I close my document, I walk downstairs, and I'm like, that line, and like go back up, open it back up, and fix the line, and then I can sort of like close it for the day. I'm trying to complete this version of the draft of my novel by the 10th, and I'm just so like I'm now on like a 3 chapters every 2 days, schedule, which is just it's so like I kid you not, I was editing like the last like 3 things in the chapter right before you clicked on. Like I was like clicking on this thing. Oh my God.
Like Gary's like, you're not going to finish it. I'm like, I'm going to finish it. So like, it's just a matter of like, I got to get them done. And it's just by any means necessary. It's like, all right, well, that's what's going to happen. So you just kind of push and fight. But now like fast forwarding to this point, in your career, like, with your body work and your credits, how do you go about it with your you go to you have an agent, so I'm assuming you have an agent.
Mm-hmm.
You go to your agent and say, hey, here's my latest thing. I mean, clearly they have an idea of what the idea is that you have, because they want to know, how whether they should get that new car and they can afford the payments in the next 5 years or not. But the question is like, how do you go to your agent and say, hey, I've got it, here's my new idea? Or are you like, at what level when do you let them know, and what do you show?
That's a good question. I feel like the way it used to be is I would just wait for the inspiration to come.
Yeah.
And then I would sort of write an outline or a couple paragraphs and send that to my agent and be like, what do you think? And now the conversations that we have are more like, well, this next book is going to be, it's like my literary book. This is my passion project. It's probably not going to be super commercial. Probably going to want to follow that up with something that's a little bit more commercial. What do you think? Where do you think I should target that? Which I think probably sounds a little bit sinister to people who are of a very arty bent. Yeah. But you have to realize that this is all that I do. Like, this is my job. So I need to think about it in a sustainable way. Yeah. And I also really like writing stuff that is more commercial. And I don't feel like every project should be or needs to be my heart's blood, Right. I have projects that I'm really passionate about that feel really personal, that are the projects that I dangle in front of myself. It's like the little carrot. And I know they're not going to probably make tons and tons of money, but they matter a lot to me. And the stuff that's a little bit more commercial and a little less personal is fun too. It's just in a different way. Yeah. It's kind of like how I was talking about being a mechanic on other people's projects. Mm-hmm. It's similar to that, but not quite. Like, there's always personal stuff in there. And I feel like I give some of those books short shrift a little bit. And then I come back to them and I'm like, oh no, this is actually pretty good. I sold myself short a little bit when I was thinking about this. Sure. But yeah, I try and think about my career as a career and not just, I don't see myself as an artist in a pure way. Like I have friends who I think really do see their work that way, and they have a day job and they do everything they can to keep their art pure. And I don't even feel like I really like pure art anyway. These days, when I turn to storytelling, I want to be entertained and I want to feel something, and that tends to lead me toward more commercial stuff. And I mean, those, you know, like your big blockbusters, your monster movies, or your like rom-com or whatever, those things are engineered to make you feel a specific feeling. And sometimes you just want to go in and say like, wow me, like give me some spectacle or give me some big feelings. That's what I want.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not a very literary or academic person in my personal tastes.
Yeah, like it doesn't always have to be Godard, you know, like it's
exactly. And like that stuff is awesome too.
Yeah, and there's plenty to learn from it and draw from it, and et cetera and so forth. Yeah, I think was it Jeremy Holt who we were talking about, you know, the idea of working on you know, mainstream comic properties, and you know, the idea is that, you know, these are other people's Lego. You know, you get a chance to go in and, you know, build something new with somebody else's Lego, and there's a lot of fun that could be had in that process. No, you don't get to keep it and go home with it, and you make your own T-shirts from it, but it's still really.
I had fun drawing the script that you were writing for the Crashover for United Forces with Amanda Semler's Yeti or Not characters in that universe. So much fun.
Right. Yeah.
So much fun in there.
And same for me. Like I got to write your characters. I got to write her characters. Yeah. Like I got to write a lot of different people's characters in that comic book, and it's fun. You know, I mean, it's a hoot in that sense. And you know, and Hope, you were saying about like the sort of the commercial and entertainment aspect. Like the novel I'm writing is the first thing after 30 years, you know, in the creative industry of comic books and advertising and graphic design. This is the first thing I've ever created that was just me. Like that it wasn't an assignment. Nobody said, "Hey, what do you have?" And it's really crazy. And no, it certainly isn't, you know, literature by any stretch of the imagination. It's a epic science fiction fantasy, you know, story. It's a hoot and a holler and a lot of action. So, you know, but that's how I'm wired. And it's, you know, I'll be honest, there's a slight bit of embarrassment to that, you know, like, well, you know, it's like I participated in a fundraiser, and like my wife kept going like, well, did you send it to your sister? Like I have a lot of sisters. So when I say a specific sister, she doesn't even have to say the name. I'll just be like, oh, no, or yes, you know, like I know which one just by tone, which one she's talking about. But like I didn't send it to like my stepmother. Like there's so many people I didn't send it to because I'm like, well, they don't. It's like not that they don't care that I'm doing this, but it has no connection to them. Like they you know, they never read the comic books I created, so why would they be reading the book I'm writing? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not their thing. So
yeah, I feel like I really just go through my life incognito for most people. Yeah. If they ask, I'll be like, I'm an author. Because, you know, it's a lot to explain the whole like cartoonist thing. Some people don't know that term. Graphic novelist is horrible. Comic writer isn't really what I am. It is and it isn't. So yeah, I usually just say I'm an author or just like evade because, you know, it's people who are into comics know, but most people don't. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't, I mean, yeah, you master of deflection and really good at asking questions. Like you're a quick draw question asker. You're like, so what do you do? Get them on their heels and keep pushing. Yeah, no, it's, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's I mean, but I love it. I love writing stories. It doesn't like and it's funny you say that the whole like you identify, or maybe if I'm using the wrong word, but you identify more as a writer now than as an artist, which I totally get, because like I don't really like all the craft that I have as an artist like is way down there, and I have to really dredge it up to get something that is, you know, sort of professional out, because I don't do it on a daily basis. You know, it's just not a muscle that I have just ready to go. I can do it, but it probably takes me a lot longer than it should.
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way.
But the writing, because that's the thing that I do every single day, well, that's the thing that just happens. Like I can sit down and I can write. I don't struggle with the, how do I get going for the day? Like you just, the alarm goes off and you start working. And I don't know. How does your day, how does your work day, do you have a structured work day, or are you, you know, free range?
I have a pretty structured work day. I get up pretty early. My kid is out the door usually between 7 and 7:30 to go to grandma's house for the day.
Nice.
Yeah, right? Yes. That is really the main reason that I'm able to.
You gotta go. I really love you. God, I love you.
Yep.
Get out of here.
Grandma's making cookies.
So once she's out the door, I make breakfast, and then I usually start working around 8:30 and work until noon and take a lunch break. And then I usually get another couple of hours of workout. And then it after lunch, it's sort of, you know, squeezing blood from a stone a little bit.
God, it's like you stare at like a sentence, you're like, word, I need a word. Like you just can't, like none of it.
Nap.
Like there's just that point where it just doesn't come out, and then you go, oh, all right, I'm done.
Throw in the towel.
Yeah, no, it's so frustrating, because what you want to do is you just want to keep going. You know, like I just, you know, can I keep going? But no. Do you? This is interesting. I mean, to me, but do you like have? I don't know. Like I mean, like you have a child, so the child sort of, their schedule has to be sort of continuous, because kids don't do well without sort of structure. But like I'm always trying to like round the corners of my schedule. I'm like, well, let's see, if I get up and then I meditate first, and then I do this, and then I do that, and then like I will constantly like reconfigure, like, and you know, maybe I'll work out in the afternoon after I'm done. You know, like I have all these sort of, you know, versions of my day that I try on. Do you have any of that?
That sounds stressful. No, I like to keep it the same. It's pretty much just been the same for years.
Yeah.
You know, like I do my best work in the morning. I try and preserve that as much as possible, because really like the main block of work is like 8 to 11.
Yeah.
And then really anything outside of that is gravy.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the afternoon is mostly just like life maintenance stuff. I work out, my kid comes home. I go to the playground, you know, stuff like that, cook dinner, work in the yard. I started sewing during the pandemic. So that's like my hobby thing, my blow off steam sort of thing.
It's not a bad one.
And, yeah, that's kind of, it's 9:48. Usually I would be in bed for like an hour already. So this is like late for me.
I know. Do you
I'm
read?
like a 10 p.m. bedtime lady. Do I read?
Yeah.
I started off the pandemic real strong with my reading. I read a bunch of books. I read Middlemarch.
Okay.
I was like, this is great. I'm so literary. I'm going to keep this going. And then I just sort of like fell off a cliff with that, and now it's mostly Netflix. So I'll get back on it though. I need to start reading again.
My buddy, a high school friend of mine who's an author out in Seattle, we were exchanging emails, and he was like, I don't read anymore. Like I'm only listening to books on tape. Like I just can't, like it's the only thing I can get in, the time in and, cram into my brain. So
I
he's,
mean, that counts. That's
no,
reading.
no, I'm not knocking him, but ever since he said that, I'm like, okay, when can I do a book on tape? Like, because I can't listen to narrative when I'm running because I need music because running sucks. And, and if I go hiking, I don't want to listen to anything. So it's like, I'm really like, I'm like, where can I like squeeze a book in? I'm ejecting podcasts at a rapid rate to try to like open up some room in my weekly schedule to kind of squeeze books in. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's what I should really do, because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I don't know if I'm really getting a ton of benefit as a writer, from that.
I've honestly, there's only one podcast that on writing that I really find like to be the sort of the chock-a-block, podcast, which is Writing Excuses. That's like the only one that it seems to have. Like,
I don't know that one. I should check that out.
You know who Brandon Sanderson is? He's like a fantasy author. He's
the name's familiar, but
he's like,
I don't really read fantasy.
I don't read a lot of myself, even though I write it. But yeah, he's been doing. They have like 14 seasons of the show, and it's very like writer specific about processes and all sorts of cool stuff. So I highly recommend it. And they're short; they're like 20 minutes long, so you can kind of like do it and then like not feel like have to do something else. I mean, you can do dishes, listen to it, and be done. I don't have a dishwasher, so that's my job. So I wanted to talk about like, I mean, so like you mentioned Rebecca, and we'll get to your new book. But like, I just wanted to like, you started working with her, 2016 ish, or I guess that book came out.
Let's see. I think it came out in 2016, right?
Yeah.
So then we must have been working on it for a couple years before that. So I would say probably 2013, 2014.
Right on.
Yeah, something like around there, because stuff just takes so long.
Sure. Art takes forever.
So I had the idea for the book, and I think I wanted to get an artist attached before pitching it. Okay. And was connected to Rebecca through a friend on Twitter. Okay. And she was just perfect. I was looking for somebody who could do these really elaborate environments and action and, character acting and storytelling stuff. And she could do all of those things incredibly well and draw tall ships, which is just a lot to ask of anybody. So yeah, we did Compass South and we did Knife's Edge, which is the sequel / companion to Compass South. And those books sold okay. And I think that they've both earned out at this point, which is pretty awesome. That's really all you can hope for a historical anything. Like historical fiction and historical fantasy are not known for being
moneymakers,
for selling tons of books. Yeah. But like we've earned out on both of those books, and that's pretty awesome. That's fantastic. And so we have a new book, which is also historical fantasy, not related to the other two, called Salt Magic, and that's coming out in October. And Salt Magic is about this 12-year-old girl, Von Seal, who goes on a quest to save her family's farm from a curse that's been placed on it by this evil witch, Greta. I'm like, bringing back witches are bad. Yeah. Witches have been good lately. And we're doing like a classic bad / morally conflicted witch. I get you
what a great, it's so interesting. I mean, the cover treatments are so stylistically, different, which is really amazing. Like this is like like a gouache painting for the new one. The interior artwork definitely looks much more like, the other two, but it's actually,
it's changed a bit. Like her art has really just leveled up an incredible amount. And
it's so good.
It's just mind blowing, and her coloring
this
stunning.
This is just
I mean, so Gary, spread that you're showing is basically the opening spread in the book. And I took all the word balloons off because nobody wants to look at the words on a screen. But so this is where it starts off. It starts with a kiss, and usually that's how your story would end. But this is a kiss between Von Seal's older brother Elber and his childhood sweetheart, and he's returning home from the war, and the first thing he does is propose. And Von Seal is just furious because this is her beloved older brother, and she's basically losing him at the moment when she should be getting him back.
Right.
And that's really the emotional core of the story, is about this relationship between Von Seal and Elber, and growing up and changing, and who you want to be as an adult.
I love that face on the bottom of the first page. It's just
me too.
It's perfect.
I love an angry tween character. They're my favorite.
It's it's inquisitive and angry, like don't understand why I'm so angry kind of anger. I love it. Beautiful.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
And the colors, as you said, I mean the tone of the palette is just so soft. It's really beautiful. And then now we're looking at the water spread, which is beautiful as well. I love.
Yeah, I really love this scene.
The whole thing is dappled.
The swimming and the color and the everything.
Yeah, it's
so gorgeous.
The treatment of the shrubbery in the background, like there's no black. We'll just I'm just gonna like a oil paint brush, just go in there and just put in some color, and it's really beautiful. The light reflections, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and another thing that just blows me away about her work is that it's all digital. Even the inking and the drawing. And I just don't know how she gets this level of subtlety, and it's just beautiful. Yeah. It's
interesting. I'm definitely going to try to get her on the show because I'm blown away with the work, and we'll find out. Yeah, I mean,
there's our witch in white.
Okay. Nice.
With the hat. That's our big bad, basically, or our big kind of bad.
She looks nice. I like it.
Yeah, she's fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of storytelling just happening in these sort of clean, simple panel arrangements, but just the the awareness, the notice of the witch, and then your protagonist looking out over the candy jars in the shop. I mean, there's all this the right sort of tone happening in the storytelling. I love it. It's beautiful. And this next spread, just killer.
Oh man. Yeah, I love this so much. This is a big party scene. This is where we've crossed over into Seer, which is this the witch's kingdom, basically.
Very cool.
And I really love this party scene because it just feels like we're in the club. It's got this lurid lighting, and you've got all these animal people and stuff, but it also has this weird nightclub energy that I just love that combination. I remember getting these pages from Rebecca and just being totally floored by the lighting.
Well,
you can tell that bad stuff is going to happen here.
Yeah,
but it's also really beautiful, and you want to join the party.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a beautiful menace within the whole sort of scene. And
yes,
and the sort of the great approach by doing the whole sort of monochromatic pages, but then as the camera kind of pulls in, the brown of his coat sort of steps out. And once again, as an element to say you are not of here. I mean, that's really, I mean, there's just a lot of things doing double duty on this stuff, so it's damn good. Yeah. When does this come out again?
It comes out, I think, October 12th.
Okay.
Of this year, October of this year.
And this
2021.
So have pre-orders opened up for?
Yes, pre-orders are opened up. If you go to, I think it's IndieBound,
Okay.
you can order through an indie bookstore. Any indie bookstore should be able to order it for you. Really any bookstore, but if you don't mind taking the time to find your local indie store, or a comic book store can order it too if they have an account with Baker and Taylor, which is just, they should. That's where all the graphic novels from book publishers come from.
Yeah. No, it's I mean it's beautiful. I mean I hope it is as successful as the artwork demands, because I mean and the fact that you got away with putting no word balloons in it, I'm totally no.
I mean, there are word balloons in the real book. I took them all out.
I'm kidding. I was trying to make you seem like a genius. No, that's I mean, it's beautiful. I can't wait to check it out. I will make sure that Comic Envy has some, so I can go pick up some there. But that's my local comic book shop. Are you going to, what is it, West Asheville Comics? What is it called?
Morgan's Comics.
Oh yes,
is the local one for me.
Yeah.
And I have not been in lately because I just haven't been going in anywhere.
Yeah.
But they are still there. They're doing cool stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, it's we've mentioned it here before, but it is insane how many comic book stores and comic book sort of outlets there are in not a big town. Like Asheville punches way above its weight when it comes to comic books. There are, I think, 4 like straight up comic book stores in Asheville, and then Malaprops and a few other, you know, kind of bookshops, and then Barnes and Noble. So it's kind of nuts. So it's a big comic book town. Maybe we should get the comic book convention back. It would be nice. Hopefully.
That would be fun now that I'm local. I mean, I love anything I don't have to travel to.
I know. I'm really tempted to go to Charlotte, to go to the Charlotte Mini-Con in November, just because I'm like, I miss going to shows, and those people put on great shows. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I have an event in November, like some library thing, and I'm like kind of hoping that they cancel it, because I'm all freaked out by Delta.
Yeah.
And when I booked it, I thought, we've got this thing licked.
I know. Well,
I was wrong.
I mean, that was the thing. Everybody felt the same way, you know, when San Diego's like, hey, we're back. And, Heroes is like, hey, we're doing our thing in November. And like, everybody was kind of like throwing them back out, and everyone's like, yay. And then now this happens, and we're like, oh no, like, can we beat it before then? Can we get, so we're all, I don't know. I mean, listen, I don't have a problem going to a show and sitting at a table wearing a mask. I don't want to go to a show, sit at a table wearing a mask, but I do it, I guess. I mean, it's, I don't know. We'll see.
I'll do it when my kid can get vaccinated, but I feel weird doing like the full on con experience before then. Like, I don't care if I get sick, because the odds are pretty slim that I would get really sick since I'm vaccinated, but I have regular contact with my parents and my mother-in-law and my little baby, and it just makes me worry about other people. Yeah,
there's so many considerations. I mean, that's like I have my considerations, and like they're very, and they're important. Like you have, okay, like it's just a convention. Like, it's not like the thing that you have to do to live. So you can do your job elsewhere, otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we've just waited so long anyway. It's like, what's a little bit longer, honestly? Yeah. And like, I have another book that I was going to be talking about that was supposed to come out in October, All My Friends, which is the 3rd Eagle Rock book. And I just found out this week that one's getting pushed to January, because we're still having all of these lingering shipping problems because of COVID. So that one's not coming out in October anymore. It will be out in January, and I guess I'll be promoting it more then. But it feels a little ridiculous to promote a book that's not coming out till January.
Yeah. So what was it? I mean, so what kicked off that series? Because I mean, I remember seeing this cover like when it came out. Like it stood out as like, oh, that's freaking awesome. So what kicked
Yeah,
us
I
off?
like this cover. I didn't design this cover, so I feel like I'm free to like it as much as I want. Let's see. This is one of my more commercial-ish projects.
Yeah.
I did this for FSG, for our Strauss and Giroux, where I started publishing with A Wrinkle in Time. That was my first book with them.
Right.
And they wanted me to do, after my pirate books, they wanted me to do something a little bit more in that middle grade contemporary slice of life space.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I pitched to them. It's about this, again, a 12-year-old girl, Bina, who really wants to be in a band and is trying to figure out how to make that happen. Like, how do you start a band? How do you become a creative person? And it really, these books, this whole series is about the how you do that, how you take, I want to be an artist, I want to be a musician, and make that actually happen. And dispensing some of my, I don't know if I would call it wisdom, but just experiences working in a creative field to kids, you know.
Your survival techniques.
That's right. Yeah. So book 1 is basically like, how do I start a band? Book 2 is, okay, I'm in a band, but this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Like all together now. This is the, okay, I'm in a band, now what?
Right.
Book, where it's mostly about interpersonal dynamics in your band and how do you make something with collaborators.
Oh.
And then book 3 is more about dealing with the industry, I guess, and like taking your band out into the world.
Right on.
So yeah, there's kind of like your full creative arc there. If there was going to be a book 4, which I don't think there will, that would be, I guess, like the now you've got a drug problem and you got to go to rehab book or something like that. I don't know.
I've got a title for you already. If you, I'll throw it out there.
Does it start with all?
It does.
It's got to start with all. Okay, what is it?
All over. So
it's all over.
So that leads me to like it's interesting because looking at this before we were talking, I was thinking, I mean, so like All Summer Long is the first book that you pitched with them. Did you pitch a series or did you pitch the book?
I just pitched the book, and then after the book came out, I came back and was like, actually, I think we should do 2 more, and they went for it. And now it's like, it's hard for me to not just see them as a trilogy.
Sure. Because
it was such a, like, I don't know why it didn't occur to me to pitch them as a group before. Yeah. But it just didn't.
Well, so I mean, because like there's so there's the big thing about like naming conventions. When you have a series of books, if whether you write mysteries or if you have a protagonist and this protagonist carries on and in stories, there's a strong publisher side of saying we need to have a convention. Like, what is the naming convention? Is it a 3-word convention? Is it a 4-word convention? Is it a convention that always uses one word that's in every single title? So that's interesting. So when you said, hey, like, when did that discussion come up with them? Then how quick was it for them to go, okay, cool, but they all have to start with all? Like, did they, like, when did that hit?
I think that conversation happened pretty late in the process, probably after the book was mostly done. That's usually when things go to marketing. And then marketing is like, well, the cover needs to be like this. Like, we don't like this cover, do it this way. And we don't like the title. And we want your title to be more like this.
Right.
And I think they wanted it to be a song title, or maybe I don't remember who came up with that.
Okay.
I think we were looking at song titles and they wanted the word summer in it because it's a book about summer.
Yeah.
So I think that's how that happened. And then after we came up with the other two ideas, then we already had All Summer Long. So they both had to be. Well, I think what I did initially was I pitched them song titles that did not have all in the title, and they were like, no. They've got to start with all. So we went back and found songs that had all in the title.
That's cool. No, I mean, it's an interesting thing, that, there's a chunk of what the process is of creating, especially, in the publishing world, like that we creators don't always have in our head. Like when we're doing the project, we're not thinking, all right, well, I've got this series. I got an idea for a series. Well, I better sit here and just thumbnail out a whole bunch of ideas of titles that can work together. Like, and people are, because the way that the companies want to package these things and sell them is they want to sell things that are, understandable and repeatable and conventional to an audience. So that, it makes sense. Oh, okay. I get it. All my friends, all summer long, all together now. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, part of the other reason for this naming convention is that publishers hate anything being a series. You never want a number on your book, because if you've got like number 2 and somebody hasn't read number 1, then they're not going to buy your book. But if just All Together Now is sitting on a shelf, then somebody might take a chance on it because it is a standalone story. So anyway, it has number 2 in there because there's all together now. So you snuck it in there. It's very clever of you. Yeah, was it? Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I've read a bunch of those Jack Reacher books, and there's you have no idea where they are in the series. I think I have bought like the same book and tried to read it a few times because there's no like book 3, book 4. I'm like, I think I've read this. Have I read this?
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. Like it's like that. Yeah,
it's hard. I'm not that smart, so I have to
you did the thing that they wanted you to do, which is to buy the book again and again. Because you don't know where it is.
Yeah, but you're annoying I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I even bought 2. I think I bought issue 8 of Strange Adventures from DC twice. Like I just, because there's these multiple covers. I'm like, I think I got this. So I came home and I'm like, man, I already read this. So, that's my burden to bear. I'll carry on. I'll be fine. No, don't worry. No, it's okay. Don't worry about me. I'll be okay.
That's his burden.
All my friends, what about a promotional like tour posters? Have you thought about that for those?
We did posters for All Summer Long.
Oh, so
and guitar picks.
Sweet.
And for this one, I'm actually not really sure. I think it's hard to. They're not going to splash out for stuff like that for book 3.
Yeah.
In a series, even though we're not supposed to call it a series.
Not a series.
It's mostly just online stuff right now because also, no one's. I mean, I guess schools are in, but I don't know of any authors who are doing in-person visits or anything like that right now. It's all virtual.
Don't know a single author who's doing that. So
I
think that's all still on hold. I mean, authors are a cautious lot to begin with, I would say. So
yeah.
The idea of getting them to say, you leave your workspace and come and do this thing, and you'll be fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
And we're doing like just a ton of virtual bookstore visits for Salt Magic when that comes out.
Oh, cool.
And virtual library conventions and bookseller stuff, and so it feels like we're doing a tour. It feels like full on book tour-y to me, having been on one book tour. It's a similar feeling, but you don't get the rush of like being in a school in an auditorium, which was really fun. I liked that a lot.
Oh, cool.
Getting to actually be there with the kids all summer long.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that must have been real fun.
It was fun. It was crazy. It was me and Vera Brosgel. We toured together, and it was like 2 weeks nonstop.
Yeah.
Really, it was a lot. You're just you're on a plane every day, and then you just land somewhere and you get shuttled around by somebody and do your presentations, and then you just go to bed and your brain just turns off and you get up and start again. I'd never really been on a tour before where you're waking up and you're like, what city am I in?
Wow.
And it's pretty wild.
So the after party was pretty fun. That's awesome. Well, so how do the virtual ones operate? Like, what's the sort of, is it like you and then like 1,000 rectangles of young people in the Zoom chat room?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, I think we lost her.
Pretty much.
No. Did we lose her?
Well, I think your audio is cutting out.
Oh, her audio.
Yeah.
Unplug. Unplug and replug.
Yeah, I think she's plugging in the hard line.
Smart.
That's what you do, right?
That's what I do.
Not me. I play it loose and easy.
You're crazy.
I know. I am totally crazy.
Crazy.
No, I don't hear you still. I wonder what the audio. Oh wait, I got it. You're muted.
Yeah.
That's it.
She hit a button.
Yeah, your mute button's hit, Hope.
She hit some button.
Yeah, I think it's on the bottom right. There you go. She disconnected her whole self. She hit the leave studio button.
Hey man, you got to do what you got to do.
He's back.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I totally hear you.
Yes.
Yay!
Okay.
Good recover.
Yeah, I think my earbuds died.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine don't last any longer.
That don't have transparency, so it's a little weird. But
yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah. So I guess we were talking about how the virtual. Wow. So you're muted again. Hold on. Let me see if I can unmute you. How's that? That's it. Okay. I can hear you.
I don't know why that keeps happening.
I don't know. Well, I can see it happen, so I can undo it on my end.
Oh.
So we're very powerful here.
Very. Just so you know.
Not that powerful. Can you hear me now? She's smiling. I can hear
good.
Board.
Is she writing in the chat?
Yeah, I could totally hear you.
She is a writer. She should chat it all in. Just write it all in.
Can you hear me? Not if you can hear me. She can't hear. How unplug?
It might be. No.
I hear it from her. I hear your.
I heard something again.
Yeah, there you are. We could hear your keyboard through the headphones.
I know. I'm so sorry. I think
it's fine.
It's
out
okay.
of headphone options, and the ones I have are not working.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. So, but the show, I guess the virtual tours, you're going in like in a YouTube chat room. Is that what it is, or Zoom?
The one that we're using for this next one is called Hop In, which I'd never heard of. And we're also using Kumo Space, which is a real weird one. It's basically like a virtual space. So you're like a little icon moving around.
Oh, weird. I'll have to check those out. That's interesting. I've never.
Cool. You can go over to the little virtual drinks bar and like click on it, and then you get a drink on your icon.
It sounds like a party.
Yeah, a party.
I was telling my husband that it's all the anxiety of attending one of these mixers brought to the virtual realm.
Nice. I'm glad we can outsource our anxiety online now. This is perfect. Gary, not every week, but many weeks, Gary does. He does what we call the mosh-ups. So Gary's book is called United Forces, and so he will take guests' characters and his characters and impose them together. Now, the United Forces, one of the protagonists is a singer for what type of metal band?
Metal band.
Oh, just a metal band.
Vetica. And he actually has music out. If you look it up on YouTube,
it does exist. There you go. You can visit victorvetica.com for music. But yeah, so apparently they've hopped into your world.
Phil's playing the bass, and Victor's singing,
playing the same note over and over again.
The girls are the friends are the backup van.
Love it. It's awesome.
So
they're playing in a garage because they're punk.
They're totally punk. Totally punk. So you've been graced and honored by Gary's matchup. I hope you survive and recover well.
She's doing fine.
How many of the virtual events do you have, and where can people find out about the virtual events?
I know we're going to put something online, but we're still kind of like setting them all up.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not going to be till October, so don't worry. It's not happening next week.
Everyone has. Just keep an eye out on. I guess probably on your Twitter. That's
Twitter, Instagram, either one. Probably Twitter would be the best.
Yeah, it's more interactive, for better or for worse.
Well, it's easier to post stuff. That's for sure.
It's way easier to retweet things. I keep trying to retweet on Instagram and it never works.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a joke because you can't retweet on Instagram. It's not possible.
I mean, you kind of can.
How? What do you mean? Reposting?
Yeah. You can share it to your stories. Anyway, I like Instagram.
Well, I guess stories is the new thing, right? Like that's the new sort of workaround on the Instagram end. I just wish they would just you could hit a button and it could just repost it on your feed. That would be just sweet.
That'd be too easy.
Well, I want things to be easy. I don't want things to be hard, Gary.
No.
So yeah, I don't know. Drawing. Are you drawing something new? I mean, is this do you have this in the
I'm working on a book right now that I sold to Holiday House.
Okay.
Which is the publisher for Salt Magic, and it is kind of a hybrid book. So half prose and half comics. Or
very cool.
Some illustrations, some comics, some prose. It's just sort of like it's diary format, so it's just a big mashup. And then I think after that, I'm planning to go back to writing and drawing comics, do another graphic novel.
Oh wow,
that's what's on the docket.
Yeah, that's cool. I love the idea of sort of textual prose, and then comic books, kind of interwoven. I like that idea. So that's pretty cool. Is that a more personal or more commercial venture, do you feel?
This one's more personal.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Maybe it'll be commercial too, you never know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
It's very personal. It's set in Nashville in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
It's drawing somewhat on my own youth,
right.
But very much fiction. So this is like it's YA. So it's more in that like sex, drugs, and hormones sort of space than middle grade. And I keep thinking, do I let my parents read this one? And how heavily do I disclaimer it? Like this is not.
Yeah.
This isn't real, guys. So
you push it right in their face. You say, "Here it is, Mom, Dad."
I mean, yeah, there's that approach. I definitely have. I have books that I just say, okay, well, I'm not going to tackle this one until the time happens when I can tackle it, and that there will be no sort of pushback. Like I'll just, So, kudos to you for making the leap, because that's a big one. Man, you and I are going to have to get together sometime and break bread, because I want to hear what life was like growing up in this town in the 90s, because that's an area of this town that I don't have much experience with. So I'm curious. I'm really curious.
Yeah, I'm very nostalgic for it, but it kind of sucks I mean, I think probably if you're a teenager, you can make anywhere suck.
Sure.
But there's not a lot going on. It was pretty dead. And I was not a cool with it teen who was out doing fun stuff and like living the punk life or anything like that. So it was pretty.
That's a brilliant line, is that a teenager can make any place suck. Like that is, it is so true on every level. But listen, that we lived and I lived in New York City, in the 80s and the 90s, man, and it wasn't a pretty place, and it was a pretty dangerous place in many ways. So, but I look back with great nostalgia for those years, but probably if I could get in a time machine and go back there, I'm like, whoa, this was shitty. Like it smelled and it was dangerous. There
was no internet.
Yeah, there was no internet. Yeah. So no, I get it, but there is, yeah. But yeah, I definitely want to hear more about that time here, because most everyone I know here in town is from somewhere else, so they don't have. Even the ones who came, who were like, oh, I've been here for 20 years. I'm like, oh, that's a long time. But then that was, it wasn't that long, in many ways. So, I definitely want to hear your take on it. And where did you go to art school? We skipped over.
I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago.
Oh, very cool.
Which I liked.
Yeah. I love Chicago. I think that's a great. Yeah, it's a great city, and I've only heard really, really good things about that school. So it's that's cool. And what did you study? Illustration, painting,
printmaking mostly.
Oh wow.
Yeah, which actually has it makes sense for going into comics, because it is we're in a printed medium, and a lot of the stuff that I learned actually crossed over. It's pretty handy.
It's funny. Like I veered from comic books into graphic design, and in the era when there was still lots of print work being done, and I remember just having to go on to press runs, and if it wasn't for sitting and having to hand color all my comic book artwork in the 90s with Dr. Martin dyes and then hand code each color, I don't know if I would have known what I was doing on press. But by the sheer knowledge of what I had to do to get the stupid comic book page completed, it gave me an understanding of CMYK printing that I was not taught, while I was in school. So it was quite a lucky, sort of sideways education. So, but printmaking, that's a perfect move. Yeah, that's cool. So, where can people find you, Hope, besides at Hope Larson on Twitter?
Yeah, at Hope Larson on Twitter. On Instagram, I'm at Despair Larson.
Nice. That sounds happy.
Somebody else got my name, so I needed to be clever, and that's really pretty much it.
Yeah.
I used to have a website, and I still have my domain, but it just links to my Twitter. So if you want, you can go to hopelarson.com, and it's just going to kick you over to Twitter, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Twitter seems to be the sort of the de facto, location for writers at the moment. That's where everyone's kind of hunkering down and, pitching their, hawking their wares, as it were. What do you got there, Gary? What are you doing, Gary?
I'm going to follow it.
Gary's already following you. Look at that.
Following.
You've got one more follower, Hope. My gosh. What are you ready? That'll get you. That's what we call quick verification if Gary starts following you. So
hey, it looks like her. All right.
All right. So last questions. Are you reading anything good right now? Any comic books? Any books? Netflixing?
God.
What you reading? What you watching?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. What am I reading? Jesus. I read the graphic novel version of Turtle in Paradise recently.
Oh, okay.
For people who are into kids, middle grade comics. That's Jenny Holm and Savannah Ganeshow. I cannot remember what her last name is exactly, but she's terrific. I just watched all of Never Have I Ever on Netflix, and I thought it was great.
Never Have I Ever. I don't know that
This
one.
was all just like very, very YA middle grade. I am not surprised that neither of these is ringing a bell.
What for a 53-year-old man?
And I'm super loving this podcast called I Saw What You Did. Have you heard this one?
No, what's that?
It's a film podcast. And it's just two awesome women talking about movies they love. They're super knowledgeable and so fun to listen to, and it is making me love movies again and love watching movies again.
Oh wow.
Because it's just like really pure and really fun, and it strips out like all of that boys club bullshit that like really like the film school crap made me hate movies for a long time. Hate is strong. Made me lose my love of watching movies for a long time. Right. So it's just, it's really fun to listen to the show and then go watch Joe versus the Volcano for the first time in a billion years.
I love that movie.
So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with me. And I'm, I'm making a quilt. So I'm a very exciting, fun person.
No. Like my wife is an inveterate knitter, amongst many other things, and and sewing. Well, she does. So she's an artist, and she does sculpture and then sort of two-dimensional artwork. And right now, she does these watercolor pieces that she's how to explain it, but she basically cuts up these watercolor pieces that she makes and then restructures them, but she sews them all back together.
Oh, that's cool.
So she sits with her in her studio with her sewing machine, cooking away day after day, just making these pieces and sending me pictures, and it's just unbelievably cool what she's coming up with. So
that's awesome. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. I'll send you her website and her Instagram so you can check out her work. I picked up issue 3 of Made in Korea by Jeremy Holt, George Schall, and Adam Willett. Gary's got issue number 1 there on display in the background. You can see, very sweet. I don't know if you check this out, but the artwork is unbelievable in this. And Gary swears the writing is good. And
it's fun. You'll enjoy the line art.
I'm sure it's going to be good. I'm just making fun of you. And then I picked up today issues 1, 2, and 3 of Jupiter's Legacy, Mark Millar's book, but Tommy Lee Edwards is doing the interior artwork for this. And go check it out. Like it's really, really amazing what Tommy Lee is pulling off in this book. Like there's this just wicked painterly quality that he's pulling off in like digital comic book artwork, but it's super structured, just solid as can be. And it looks like issue 3, I grabbed what it was available, but it's got the John Paul Leon cover, which I'm pretty psyched that I got to pick that up. So we went to college with John. He was just one of the greatest people. So so that's what I'm reading. And we've got a big thing coming up on Friday. So my wife said, like, I'm going to be a couch potato for a week or so. So I need something to chill out and watch. So I bought all 9 seasons of Seinfeld for her. So we watched the first 3 episodes, and and she's just rolling in hysterics, and the beautiful thing is that it only gets funnier versus less funny. So I'm pretty happy that there's gonna be a lot of laughter in the house for a while. Gary, did you pick anything up decent?
At the comic store, I got Barbarian number 2.
Wow.
This is
all right. That's the guy with the cursed axe that wants.
He gets cursed. The axe isn't cursed. He gets cursed. Okay. Oh, okay. And the axe is a skull that talks and wants blood, keeps eating things. Okay. And in this issue, you find out more about the witch that he goes with.
A witch, another witch.
There's another witch in here, and
The bad
there's
witch
magical powers with witches, and he's a barbarian, but he's trying to be good and not trying to be good. He's all over the place.
Well, that is a good question. Like, what classifies you as a barbarian? Is this an economic thing? Is this a socio-economic thing? Is it a political thing? How?
I think his barbarian, he just wants to kill and do whatever he wants.
Well,
and he's got like morals now he has to follow, because
is that the curse?
You gotta read the book.
Ugh.
Can't give you all the details.
That seems like work. All right. Well,
no spoiler there, boy.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. I'll check it out. So, Hope, I'm gonna have to do the outro because Phil is not here, and I'm horrible at it. So I apologize in advance. So, thank you
so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So October-ish, 12th, 13th-ish, somewhere.
I think 12th.
Okay, 12th. Yes, everyone can go pre-order Salt Magic. It's freaking beautiful artwork, unbelievable. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. So the whole thing, because these 8 pages are not enough. But yeah, so thank you. I'm so glad that we finally got to do this. Represent Asheville, small and proud. And yeah, so everybody, next week we're having a special episode talking about our upcoming comic book, and then season 7 is following that, and I have really no idea what's going on. So we'll hopefully have something lined up for that to talk about next week. Until then, have a great week. Hope, once again, thank you, and we'll catch up soon. Okay?
See ya.
Bye, everyone.